So the remainder of my talk draws from a range of research collaborations of the Public Science Project at the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. We are a collaboration, a research institute where policy research is undertaken around education, criminal justice, housing, and urban life, undertaken by coalitions of researchers, activists, policymakers, lawyers, everyday people, not like we're all not, educators and youth. At the Public Science Project, we take seriously the writings of Ignacio Martín Baró. You might know him as a liberation psychologist. He was one of the Jesuit priests who was killed in El Salvador. He was also a social psychologist. His call in 1996 for research that challenges what he called the dominant lies, then referencing the kind of dominant stories that were being perpetrated by the government in El Salvador. But we also begin each community project with a Du Boisian question: how does it feel to be a problem? And we investigate the structures and historic conditions that produce inequity and how ascriptions of deficit, terror, or damage adhere to some bodies, while other bodies are laminated, particularly white bodies, elite bodies, so that notions like criminal or deficient don't quite stick as easily. And we practice what feminist philosopher Sandra Harding calls strong objectivity. That is, we build initially fragile and increasingly sturdy contact zones where diverse knowledges dialogue, share perspectives, critique lines of analysis that privilege. We craft questions that derive from subaltern brilliance, but we challenge the dominant story and dare to interrogate a different story, to quote from Arundhati Roy, a different story than the one that we're being brainwashed to believe. Our work happens in prisons, in communities, in schools, and in social movements, and each critical PAR project opens with a research camp. So that can happen in the prison, it can happen at a college, it can happen at the Graduate Center, it can happen at the Yankee Tavern in the South Bronx, where we pool our knowledges. All of us who are researchers share what we know to be true. And I'll give you some examples of these. But like in the South Bronx, when we're studying aggressive policing, the grandmothers who have been taking photos of the police beating up their grandsons from the 7th floor, the 4th floor, and the 2nd floor, and then calling each other and creating a chronicle of those events, they were doing research long before we got there. They then just hooked up with a public interest lawyer and then asked us to come in and help create a systematic survey of the community. But we pool those knowledges with no fantasy that people from the community know everything or researchers know everything, but we create a space that interrogates power but tries to bring together the different resources that we have to craft a question, craft a design, think about products worth producing, and then for us, the community always owns the data. Those for us are kind of the non-negotiables, that the community who has been most affected by the issue help shape the question, hopefully shape the research, but certainly shape the products and own the data at the end. And I'm happy to say that confessionally, that there are many mistakes and hiccups and times where we step on power lines and whiteness pours its way in and the academic hegemony pours its way in, and we create a process for having those conversations. But there's nothing clean or more ethical about this kind of work. It's deeply theoretical. We all read social theory. We all research history. We interrogate existing, usually quantitative databases to understand the issues in the community. So we look at the NYPD data back to the Bronx, but we also collect our own. And we do what's called, in that case, stats for the people. So we do statistical analyses in the basement of Yankee Tavern. And as I said yesterday, lots of people who failed 8th grade math are really good at crosstabs on race by stop and frisk for their communities. They really get why it's important to be asking those intersecting questions.